we're talking flooring today, and I'm super excited about it. The reason why is in this cabin, that's almost 2,000 square feet, we have many rooms, many transitions. There's a lot of snow on the ground. And today we're gonna be installing flooring, number one, with no transitions, except for like the bathroom. And number two, making sure it's waterproof so we can deal with all the junk that comes this way. And at the same time, we're gonna save a whole bunch of money. Let's get started. All right, guys, let's talk flooring. There's tons of different options out there, but the most traditional ones are hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, or LVP, also known as luxury vinyl plank. Apart from price point, there's a few key characteristics that are graded within the type of flooring you want to choose. There are 5 basic characteristics between laminate and LVP flooring. Those being core, water resistance, scratch resistance, durability, and appearance. I'll be completely honest with you, with advancement of flooring technology, a lot of these characteristics are really comparable to each other, but there are 2 that stand out the most, that being core and water resistance. And the reason being is the material or the core that they're made out of. With laminate flooring, you have a composite core. That means it's kind of like a dense MDF, if you will. And we've all worked with MDF. That sucker, when it gets wet, it soaks it up, swelling up your floors, and that's not a good day for anybody. With LVP, the core is plastic, so you don't have to deal with anything getting absorbed. Now with water resistance, because we're dealing with a wood composite material, that is going to soak up like a sponge when it comes to laminate flooring. However, with LVP, we're not dealing with wood, so plastic is gonna take our flooring to a longer lasting lifetime. This is by far one of my most favorite flooring to use. This is my second time doing this stuff, and I'll tell you why it's so great. Number one, it's easy to install. Number two, it's waterproof because how tight the seals are. Number three, you don't need an underlayment. Save a bunch of money because it has the cork underlayment below. My only problem with this stuff is I'd like it to be a little bit thicker, but everything else so far, it's fantastic. Let's get started. Whenever you do flooring, you gotta establish where you're gonna start. Typically, you wanna come at an entrance. If you have a front door, the line should start going vertically in front of you, not horizontally. Our entryway is through the mudroom, so we're gonna start on this side of the wall because we actually have a nice flat wall that we're gonna work our way out this way and get into the hallway versus starting mid-house and then move to the sides. That's chaos. In order to start your first line, what we'll need to do is first have our long piece. The next piece is gonna be a 3/4 long piece, so that's gonna get chopped off there. And the last piece is gonna be a 25%, well, a third, technically, if we do the math right. Once we get that started, they'll be able to break up any kind of patterns, kind of like camouflage, and continue our lines out. And the good thing is when you cut these pieces off, do not throw them away, put them against the wall because you're gonna use them on the other side. That's okay. We want to get ourselves a straight line. I'm gonna have to throw some wedges in there so this doesn't get pushed all the way in there. You want it to be floating. You don't want to start nailing or gluing it down because if you do, you got to do the whole entire thing. This is called a floating floor. Once we put our wedges in there, we're gonna take our large tongue and our small tongue, lift our small tongue on top, get it in place, everything's nice and sealed, and just break it down there. Do the same for our small piece. We got our flooring started. I've actually never done this. I mean, I've used wedges, but these are from tile and they always fall down. I'm gonna try to put like one brad nail and see if it'll stay. Oh, that's perfect. So what that'll do is once we've got our line started, because we know this line is completely flat with the rest of the house, when we push our flooring against it, we're gonna keep that straight line without having to go underneath this drywall, making sure nothing gets out of line. Now, I'm not too worried about this section here is because we're gonna have cabinets here. When flooring, you can have 2 options. Either install them before your cabinets or after your cabinets. Before the cabinets, it's nice and easy and you don't have to stop anywhere and you don't have to do finishing touches. When you do it after the cabinets, well, that's where you gotta start trimming things off and covering them up. This way, we're gonna waste a little bit of money on a few pieces, but end of the day, I'd rather get this in now and then just have a free playground to play with for cabinet installation. On these corner pieces, for the most part, they can go in really well. You just really need to just conceal or have a minimum enough of a gap that'll conceal with your baseboard, depending if you go with 3/4 trim or 1/2 inch. So once you get this in and slide it in place, and let's say this doesn't snap in, just grab yourself one of these flooring installing tools, which With this kind of floor, you honestly don't use it that much. And then you put it in here, give it a couple of bangs with a little mallet, you should be back in business. It's blown pretty quick so far. Speaking of no transitions, this is our first section of no transition. A lot of times by the doors, you have to get like a trim piece to cover this stuff. But with these pellet doors, what's cool about them is they actually have a natural gap underneath. So what we'll need to do is this piece, I cut it too short. So what we'll need to do is get it a little bit longer and it'll go right underneath an exact width. And I'll be looking absolutely freaking flawless. That's one transition. And then we got a bunch of other transition to go. Coming across our next transition here, we're wrapping around through the hallways. This is important here because when you're coming through here, you got your door jambs already in place. The best way to get the best results in terms of having everything concealed is this door jamb. You gotta notch it on the side, on below it. And what you can do is take a scrap piece of your flooring, lay it down, use an oscillating tool, give it a nice perfect cut. That way this piece slides over and we'll be able to continue this transition. And then we'll have a little flip transition towards the tile. And remember, I said the only transitions we're gonna have is for the bathrooms, and we're keeping our word for it. So number one selling point behind this flooring is the fact that it's waterproof. And most flooring is water resistant and like scratch resistant. So it has like a tolerance to it. And I've done a video about a year and a half ago, maybe I'll link it right here, of me testing the most expensive versus the most cheapest flooring. And I did a flood test for like 48 hours to see what made the seams come apart. And the reason I went with waterproof flooring is, as you can see, we're getting a lot of snow out here. This is all packed up. So what I was afraid of, that this would actually penetrate through the flashing and start seeping in. That's first order of fear. Second order of fear is when you're coming in through this entrance, you have a bunch of snow here that could possibly seep underneath, or people coming in here, and as you can see, we already have some puddles. With this stuff is the reason why it's as tough as it is. The way it's kind of fabricated is, if you see here, we have basically a plastic, a cork board for your dampening and no reason for moisture barrier. And then on top of that is we have just a very fine veneer. Now this stuff, I've tried to scratch it many a times and didn't have any luck. I mean, this is my key. I mean, you can't see, if we could try to get that light in here, I mean, you could barely see anything here. That's really impressive. That's good veneer, and I know good veneer when I see it. But also, because there's not a lot of MDF or wood particles inside this thing, when these seams come together, they're also not wood. And so now you've got basically a gasket that's working in your floors. This is by far one of my most favorite floors I've ever worked with, especially for the price point. All right, we got really tight fits around the wall, which is great because we don't have to use 3/4 inch baseboards. We can if we wanted to, but you can get away with 1/2 inch, which means we'll save a little bit of money on materials. Now, one thing I did learn from my flooring guys is there's a little bit easier way to install this stuff, and we're using minimal tools. We're actually only using it on ends or tight to reach spots like that with a little pry bar. But with this stuff, if you lay this long piece, I'll call it the tongue, out in front of you, not inside on the other side, and then you take your short end and you place it in, it locks a lot easier. Now, whenever you have a hard time, most of the time it's because you're approaching it this way and there's not enough leverage. Second piece of advice I was given by my flooring guy is use your foot for that leverage. So when you have this connecting piece, get it nice and tight, make sure this piece is lined up as closely to the veneer as possible. Don't have it sticking out, 1/8 of an inch or more. As long as you get it nice and tight, you get your foot in there, press that in. This is a lot harder when there's not a lot of pieces. Oh, there it is. And then just snap it in place. Literally no tools. Really like this product. Here's the annoying parts, and the annoying parts always come about is whenever a piece has to go overlap into the other section. We try to do a little U around it, and it just doesn't work, especially on a section like this that we need both. So what we kind of came up with is if we pop it in, and then take the piece that we already stenciled out before cutting it, getting it here. Well, that's a little too far, but you get the idea. Once we get it in there, we can glue it down and brad nail it down to the subfloor. That way it looks like a continuous piece, and this is a nice crisp line because we cut it with the template. And then we can continue without any transitions going into the laundry room, the furnace room, the closet, and the mudroom. Come on, line up. This is where using your scrap pieces that you cut off as your starters, save them, because when it comes to small spaces like this, they're a great filler without having to get a whole new plank and waste material. All right, solid day 2 flooring. We got the entire living room, dining room, kitchen all done up. We're in the hallways, we're doing the closets. We are almost ready to get in the other rooms. And also you're like, hey, who's the other guy on camera? Well, this is Ben. Say hi to Ben. Hi. So Ben has been working with me off the channel on so many projects over the course of like a couple of years now. 2-3 years. And we just got a perfect opportunity for him to come on board and be part of the Mr. Build It channel here. And it's awesome because he knows what he's doing, and it's gonna help me bust out these projects a whole lot quicker. That means more videos. So make sure you give Ben some love in the comments, be nice to him. And in the meantime, we are gonna come back tomorrow and start wrapping ourselves into finishing off the rest of that hallway. We're making our way into the primary bedroom's closet. We're almost done in here. We got our basement or crawl space access. We gotta get the lid up there. But one thing I wanted to mention to you guys, downstairs, down below in the crawl space, we have a moisture barrier. It's just mostly there to keep moisture from the raw ground seeping up, building up underneath, possibly creating mold, and at the same time it acts as a weed barrier. Now there's also something else that comes out of there that I only recently got onto, and to be honest with you, it's freaking me out. All right, so full disclosure, I had no idea about this. My mother-in-law about a year ago told me that I should get a radon kit for my house, and I had no idea what it is. So after doing some research, I found out, terrifying, that radon is a gas that's a byproduct of uranium being broken down through rocks and soil, you know, when they build your house, excavation, all that stuff. And get this, it's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless, and the terrifying part about it, that it's radioactive. Great. It can seep into your house through the cracks in your foundation if not properly ventilated. And by the way, did you know that in your crawl space, you have your foundation walls, and then down the middle is just a piece of millimeter some plastic? That's just a vapor barrier. That being said, I could not be more excited to partner with the sponsors of today's video, Aeronet. Now there's a map where you live to show you the levels of radon in the soil, and you could judge based off of what those levels are. Now we live in Idaho, and based off of the map, we're a zone 2. That means we're between 2 and 4 picocuries. Now I wanted to make sure that Aeronet Radon Plus sensor is the one to go with because there's so many online. So I hopped on Amazon and I bought 2 of the most populars out there. Right out of the gates, the Air things did not show me a reading. It actually took up to, I believe, an hour to get a reading. Number 2, there's no Wi-Fi connection to this, and it only shows me the long-term average and the current day average. Though the EcoCube is nice and slick, there's no way for me to come up and see the reading apart from getting into my app. So if you're not a scientist like me, this really simplifies it. It's a simple green, yellow, and red. This allows me to have more of a peace of mind to know which part of my house, or maybe it's the workspace that I work in right now, are the most troublesome. Now, after getting slightly high readings at the cabin, I went ahead and installed a radon gas remediation system at the cabin, where in the crawl space, I have a pipe and a fan that sucks the radon gas up and vents it out of the building so that it doesn't incandescent starts seeping through the subflooring. Radioactive gases are responsible for over 21,000 lung cancer deaths in the United States, so please be sure to check out the radon gas levels in your home. And to make it a little bit easier for you to get a sensor for your home, Aaron is providing a special discount code for the viewers of this channel. When you click the link in the description, use my code BUILDIT10 and you'll receive 10% off your AirNet Radon Plus sensor. All right, this is the primary bedroom. We just got a stripped finish here. We already made our run into this closet here where we have attic to the basement or the crawl space. We got to get our OSB on so we can get the flooring onto it. But everything's installing nice and smoothly. In case I forget to mention, the product is called Cortec Pro, and the color is Cairo Oak. So it has those natural wood tones that are pretty universal. They're large planks, and being scratch resistant, waterproof, and all that other stuff that we already mentioned, price point is fantastic. If you were to find into Home Depot or any other store, most of the easy access stores like that, the big box stores, they're usually like the premium stuff is like $5 or $6 a square foot. This stuff is actually pretty reasonable considering the cheapest is about $2 a square foot. This Cairo Oak and ProTech is $4.09. So if you want to do your own calculations of what it would cost to do your own home, $4.09 a square foot multiplied by how many square feet you have. Good practice to have is maybe add 10 to 15% extra for, script and all that stuff. I think you'll be sitting pretty. All right, we're gonna finish this last strip off, and that means we can start heading up and working on the second floor. All right, everything's going smoothly. We're making our way to the second floor. Now remember, we're gonna have a spiral staircase here and a railing. So the flooring is still gonna match it going vertically this way along with the rest of the cabin, but here's the thing. We gotta cap it off right over here to conceal this drywall and make the transition, if you will, to the upper floor. So they sell these little transition pieces. They're cool, but the weird thing about it is you only have about 3/8 of an inch for lift. So what we're gonna do here is we scribed our line for that 3/8 of an inch, and we're gonna take our flooring, we're gonna butt it up to exactly where that line is. And then with the magic of this end cap, we're gonna slide it in place. And what it'll do is it'll sit just at that 3/8, so we'll have a nice tight fit here. And because there's a little bit of a bow, which I don't know where it's coming from, to be honest with you. Well, it's tiny, you just gotta bring it in. We'll put liquid nails, secure that straight down, and then we'll put some tape over it to make sure it dries comfortably overnight, and then this should be pretty dang flawless. We got everything lined up, we did a dry fit. Here's one thing I discovered last minute. These have an exposed ends on them. And when I asked my flooring guy, awesome, Leo from Nampa Floors, he said what flooring guys typically do is to create a 45 and then put that 45 on there to cap it off. Unfortunately, this is an 8-foot stick, and this is a few inches over, actually it's 1 inch over 8 feet. So I would have to buy a completely separate stick, and by that time I won't be able to have enough material to make that 45. So I put the old noggin to work, and I kind of came up with a system where I took a scrap piece of flooring and I created these end caps, and I think they fit so nicely. I'm really excited how that turned out. But everything's all done up. We're gonna throw some liquid nail down, throw this piece on, and then we're gonna tape it down so this sucker doesn't move before it has a chance to dry. Okay, transition's on. It's gonna be drying overnight. Tomorrow it should be solid. We have maybe another 120 square feet left in here. This sucker will be done, and that means we'll be ready for trim and baseboards and all that cool stuff. Let's wrap this up, and I'll show you guys when everything's cleaned up, this big reveal, how nice it looks. Stay tuned. Well guys, I could not be happier how everything turned out here. The floors look absolutely perfect. The transitions are flawless. The product is incredible. I've used it before, like I said, it's waterproof. We're already bringing a bunch of snow in here. I have that peace of mind knowing that this thing is gonna last a very long time, and at the same time, didn't break the budget. All in all, almost 2,000 square feet, banged it out in about a week. $5,000 was total spent on the materials, and boy, it looks great. But I gotta get back to working. I'm building an entire bathroom, shower, the whole kit and caboodle, saving myself a whole lot of money. Make sure you subscribe, check out next week's video, and in the meantime, here's a video I think you might enjoy. See ya, bye.